What up, YouTube? It's Frisky Dingo here, getting back with you guys with another reaction slash review video. Today we're looking at another review of Halo Infinite. I've been playing the storyline and the multiplayer. So always remember to like, subscribe, and leave a comment on this video because we are on a grind. That being said, yeah, the storyline has been going extremely well. I'm playing the game on heroic, so you know there is a little bit of surprises facing the brute bosses, but other than that, I'm up to the part with the anti-defense cannons. You basically have to take out 3 of them so that you can move on to the next area. Honestly, the game has been 100% fun. My only real beef is that obviously when you look at the game, because of the development, there's a few aspects that you can tell. And the biggest aspect is that the game was not developed properly to be a single first-person shooter. Unfortunately, let me break down what I'm trying to say. Basically, when 343 Studios was basically outsourcing all these different positions for the Halo Infinite game, it kind of created a void with the storyline and or the setup of the game. Now with Halo Infinite, one thing I'm very much aware of is that this game is to be considered as a soft reboot, but even still, so the moving mechanics between the storyline is honestly, I'm in mid of the game, and I have to say it has not been as exciting as the first 15 seconds of the game when you see Master Chief fight Atriox and then Atriox throws him off. Ever since then, it's just been a downpour. Now, don't get me wrong, the other parts of the game I think are extremely well, in the sense of the storyline with the Harbinger, the Endless kind of being the precursors, but more of a more formed precursor. Basically, that's what they're considered. They're supposed to be like the Flood, but the thing about the Flood was that they were 2 things. They were basically the precursors who end up dying and left their dust, so that they had a contingency plan. So basically, when a precursor died, they purposely created the Flood so that the Forerunners would basically have nothing left to fight for, because with an organic invasion, the Forerunners would have had to basically wipe everything out. So basically the precursors won in a sense, because ultimately, because the Forerunners ended up trying to steal the mantle of responsibility, and they lost the precursor war to the Flood, and they lost the they lost the precursor war technically, even though mendicant bias and offensive bias fought each other. And that being said, offensive bias still won, but ultimately we know that the precursors ultimately did win in the long battle, because their goal was to annihilate the Forerunners because of them going against them for the mantle of hope, and then also the mantle of responsibility, and also they went against by stealing the mantle. So they fought the precursors for the mantle, then they stole the mantle from humanity. So technically what happened with the precursors was necessary. So we get all this information within the game, which I extremely like. And even with the Endless part, I think is extremely fascinating, because we're getting a more unique storyline when it comes to the precursors, because we honestly have not gotten a storyline for the precursors besides the Flood. Now, the Flood has been continuous enemies since Halo 1, but they always broke down the understanding. Halo 1, the only reason the Flood existed and or contaminated and escaped was because the Forerunners, after destroying the Flood and the original Grave Mine, basically started testing on the Flood on the Delta Halo. So that's how we get to this point, where the Flood basically were being tested on. So we understand the Delta Halo was an experiment facility. We understand the ZETA Halo is supposed to be a containment facility, basically a prison, but also basically a genealogy halo that allows the Forerunners to keep the DNA of all species. So that could be, and that's what we notice, right? Because for the Harbinger, right, she was the only one with her own lone template. And on top of that, she has the mark of the Reclaimer in her forehead. So I think all of these little bits of pieces and information is extremely good, extremely fun to hear, especially within the storyline where we have someone like Atriox, who wasn't the most powerful, but basically what we understand is that Atriox was the most mentally strong. He understood the war between, he understood why the Covenant was failures. He understood why humanity needed to be fought against, and he understood why Cortana was wrong completely. So Atriox is an interesting character. I can't wait to find out more. From what I do understand, they did announce Halo the Endless DLC. They just basically trademarked that, so we should be getting more continuous storyline. One thing I do know from the Halo storyline is that most likely it's going to be an open expansion world. So basically they're going to use Halo Infinite to basically build upon the story, and that's what 343 Studios said themselves. Halo Infinite is supposed to be a 10-year game, a 10-year single-player campaign. So we're going to see how they move forward with that, and that'd be really interesting because, you know, once again, what we already know is that games like Fortnite are being sustainable for almost 10 years. We got Overwatch that's basically about to reach 10 years, and then Halo has not had a significant game in a very long time. So I think it would make sense to stop, because the problem with Halo after Bungie left was that unfortunately 343 Studios didn't know what they were really doing with the product, but also just hyperly released the fourth Halo without trying to get a mini game or some kind of testing for what they really want in the middle. And that's why Halo 4, you know, was considered, you know, it was considered short, it was considered stagnant, you know, not moving the storyline forward, because one thing is we already knew about the Didact, we already knew about the Librarian. So to bring them back and basically have it that the humans won back the mantle of responsibility, when reality is the humans won the mantle of responsibility back once the Forerunner War was done. Because remember, humanity fought the Forerunners twice. The first time humanity fought the Forerunners, they won. Because we weren't as technologically advanced, and then we ended up losing a lot of stuff. And then the second Forerunner War, we were brought back and basically found out our roots and all that, and the war became stagnant. So one thing we understand is that humanity is always going to be fighting for the mantle of responsibility, and it's really about the other species in the galaxies getting used to the new humanity. That's basically what they're experiencing. So and that's one thing I like about the storyline. You know, we're getting all these little bits and pieces. So as of right now, we already know there was multiple Spartans on this Halo, about a whole army of them. So we already know that there was a war taking place. The Banished had already won, and basically humanity is on its last leg. But not really our last leg, because ironically, we don't really know what happened to the other colonies outside of the Halo universe. The only thing we do know is that currently most of the UNSC was at the Zeta Halo. We don't know what happened after the Zeta Halo. We just know that they lost the war. So it could still be bits and pieces of information, especially with the Spartans. I think that's the most important part, because the Spartans are the ones who ended up fighting the war. And from what we know with Griffin was that he was one of the last Spartans to fight in the war. So if he was the one of the last Spartans to fight in the war, and he just recently died, then everything that has happened is basically still very new. So we got a lot more storyline to get into. I can't wait to finish up the game. You know I'm guys gonna update you on it. I just bought the battle pass, so I'll make a separate video for that. But if any more news for Halo or Halo Endless, I'll definitely make an update, and I'll definitely see you guys in the next one.